All right. Well, I welcome today Angela Ristrom and of course also Danielle, who is my helping hand. Angela, you are representing tonight Stiebel Eltron. We will be talking about ventilation and why is it actually moving into a focus of discussion, in particular considering our homes are becoming more and more airtight, less leaky. So tonight we want to dive really deep into the health aspects and how do you mitigate actually mold and moisture with good air ventilation, and what other benefits can it actually, and co-benefits it also contains with proper air ventilation solutions. And Daniel will be also posting a couple of polls. Simone, unfortunately, our passive house expert can't join tonight, but we have prepared a little peek inside into her passive house home and also the reasoning why she has actually chosen mechanical air ventilation for her home. So I will jump into the slides. And welcome everyone for tonight's session. It will be a packed session with a lot of information from health ranging up to technical information and design information. So keep with us and we will go through all the details, and please feel free also to ask any questions during the sessions. Danielle will be more than happy to pick these questions and also to let us know whenever there's something really of interest, and we can answer that during the session. So before we jump in, I just want to do a quick acknowledgement of country as well. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Evitat acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aborigine and Torres Strait Islanders people today. We are here to listen, learn, and build a future together. Angela, I welcome you. I'm quite excited about today's session. I think it's a really highly discussed topic, and we had many vital discussion going around even internally over the time. I've learned a lot diving actually deeper also through the lens of passive house, energy efficiency, and why ventilation is a core mitigation strategy to really work with moisture build up in our homes. And now that we are moving also from the regulatory side into more energy efficient homes, but also in terms of retrofitting, we will dive today in all aspects. And Angela, I hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. So my name's Angela. I work at Stiebel Eltron Australia. We are a German company that has subsidiaries around the world. My role at Stiebel Eltron is in specifications. So I mainly deal with architects and developers in helping them design a solution when they come to us and say that their client would like to build an energy efficient home, and we help them specify ventilation, hot water, and hydronic heating, amongst some other products that we have that are all electric.
And maybe on that note, Stiebel Eltron is, I think, since inception, an all-electric company.
That's correct. So we are an all-electric company. Dr. Theodore Stiebel, 100 years ago this year, so we are celebrating our 100th birthday, invented the coil immersion heater, So it's just a little coil on a stick with a plug, and it was the traveling man's companion during the 50s and 60s, where they could heat their hot water for their cups of tea and so forth. So that's how the company started and grew from there. And now we offer all sorts of solutions for to live comfortably in your home without using fossil fuel.
Amazing. So we already scratched on this. We are moving fairly, like in terms of new builds, fairly fast to more efficient, energy efficient homes. They are far better sealed. The thermal envelope works way better than it used to be. But even in terms of renovating, retrofitting, we are plugging our leaky homes and trying actually to move away to have these glorified tents and to put more energy efficiency. With that comes a whole lot of considerations we need to probably discuss, in particular around indoor air quality and what, for example, it means to in terms of moisture build up and navigating that space. So even here, it's mentioned we spend 90% of the time indoors. So on that side, maybe Angela, let
Yeah,
us
sure.
um,
Yeah,
like touch on these things, what human
sure.
actually need.
So, yes, we do spend a lot of time indoors, and primarily in Australia, we've spent a lot of time indoors in leaky buildings. But, things are changing around regulations and building codes. So, just in terms of what humans need, before I delve into all of that, we need 15,000 litres of air a day. So that's something that we don't really talk about. We talk about the food we're eating and the liquids that we have to consume, but good air quality is really paramount to our health. So we'll just skip to the next slide there. So things that affect our air quality, and we all know this, that there are lots of different things in our air: bacteria, insects, humidity, dust, and CO2 buildup, which is a huge one when we're in buildings that we're sealing up to make energy efficient. And even if they aren't that energy efficient, we can still have stuffy rooms. They might have just no air movement in them. I think we've all come through the school system, and we know that being in a stuffy classroom, might not have just been the teacher was boring, but when you have CO2 build up, there's headaches, you get tired, and you can feel nauseous as well.
Absolutely. There's maybe also to mention furniture materials, building materials. They do off gas. In particular, for example, building materials which are exposed to heat, outside heat, they might release formaldehyde and other gases. So the
Sure.
indoor air quality is actually a really significant part.
And we know too that lots of people suffer from hay fever. So, you can have a hay fever attack in your own home because you've got the windows open, and also asthma as well. If you've got no air movement through the home and you're just getting a lot of buildup, then, you can have children can do suffer from asthma. And we do sell these units around for people that have asthmatics in their homes. So there are lots of different things that affect our air quality. We know when you live closer in the city, there's vehicle emissions, fossil fuels, construction and farming. And as you said, the off-gassing of appliances and building materials as well, and furniture in your home. So lots of different things affecting our air quality. This is just something that you can do, that you can have a look at the air quality around you. There's a live index that you can get on and have a look at it's a worldwide index, so it measures pollution around the world. I had a look at it today, the live index, and there was, it was unhealthy around Muralbach this afternoon. So I don't know why, but there could have been just pollution of some sort from factories or so forth. So air quality can change. But in general, it's pretty good in Australia. But this doesn't measure, pollen activity and that sort of thing as well.
We will tap into air quality in particular around also certain scenarios. For example, we have I'm not 100% sure if I'm titling the right way, but there's like this safety burns, for example, just to avoid actually large bushfires. And that can actually cause quite intense impacts on air quality. And a lot of people who are very sensitive to it suffer on these days. So that's also a consideration as well. So I just go further.
So with a heat recovery ventilation system, one of the great benefits of it is that it aims to manage carbon dioxide in your home. So outdoor air, the CO2 concentration sits at around 500 parts per million. If you've got closed windows in a stuffy room, if it gets up to 2,500 parts per million, these are the things that can happen. Your loss of ability to concentrate, headaches, nausea. The centralized heat recovery system, and I'll explain how it works shortly, aims to bring the level of air quality down to a pleasant level by introducing fresh air. So we know too that when you do have a building that is airtight, because you've done the right thing, you've created an energy efficient home with lots of thermal insulation, double glazed windows, because you want to trap that heat in your home or the cool that you've created in your home and not have it leak out of the building. But there are things that happen around that, and there is the situation of mould buildup. So that can happen, and it can have detrimental effects to our health, but also to the buildings that we're living in as well. So mould is becoming quite a serious issue, particularly in New South Wales and Queensland, where it's been quite wet as well. We've seen incidences of mould rising. And that can cause asthma and lung diseases, sneezing, respiratory infections. So it's not a very pleasant thing to live in a mouldy home.
Definitely not. And I think Simona mentioned in previous webinars, for example, that we even emit around 6 liters of moisture every single day, which is quite a lot. And that needs to go somewhere. So in a really well-built home where you have, ventilation, like a regulated ventilation, you can work with that. And of course, building materials play also to some degree a part, in particular vapor permeability of building materials. But in general, when we cook, and then in some cases, people still hang their clothes inside in laundries, there's a lot of moisture and water in the air, and that needs to go somewhere. If it can't actually evaporate properly and dry out, we are very prone actually to create perfect environments for mold. And that's a real issue. Like we have also a little bit that history of not heating every single room, in terms of saving costs, but that exactly often contributes actually to build up of mold and can create massive issues we might not even see immediately. And then it infiltrates even the structure of the home. And by the time actually it is obvious, it is probably already a big hazard. Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, I participated last year in the Master Builders Association of Victoria, had a whole day spent on what the NCC changes from 6-star to 7-star would mean for homes and the mould issues, and how we overcome those mould issues by better, more sort of better building wraps, permeable building wraps, and also ventilation is something that can help. I mean, we do have extraction fans in our home. The NCC changes, I don't know if that's coming up, but, we do have extraction fans in our home, but they're not on all the time. They're on when you go to the toilet or when you're cooking, or they're in the bathroom to get rid of the steam in your bathroom, but they're not on all the time. And that's where you can still, just day by day living, still get a lot of moisture buildup in the home.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, on that note, I want to quickly showcase also Simone's house. Simone is a passive house expert, as said, but she has also some very personal reasons why she has chosen, I think it's a fully heat recovery ventilation system for her new build home. So Simona suffers many times in the past from asthma attacks. So these are flare-ups, in particular during springtime, but also in terms, for example, when these burns would happen, for example, around the areas, she would have heavy patterns of flare-ups, and to the point where she actually stayed at home. She couldn't even go to work and so on. So her home as a passive house, it's awaiting actually the passive house certification, has a full mechanical ventilation solution. And I think, Angela, you can maybe say a few words later on that one as well. But what she actually said to me, it's an absolute sanctuary to calm down that flare up. And that's a really important part to consider, in particular if you are really highly sensitive to these things. She had also previously, she was living in a kind of unit villa, and she has done an amazing job retrofitting that unit, or actually fully renovating, and made it to 8.7 or 8.4 stars rating. So it's an incredible job, but she previously suffered a lot actually from mold and pollen going through. So again, this is now pretty much non-existing, and that's a huge benefit for her to live in that home and not to have these frequent patterns of health issues. On that note, she has also installed a slimline water tank, which is providing filtered water because she has also some allergies to chlorine and chlorinated water. So we can see here at the top the heat recovery ventilation system, and maybe you can tell a little bit about that system.
Sure. So this size system is used primarily for homes, 3-4 bedroom homes. It's about the same size as a dryer, maybe slightly bigger. There is a little bit of planning involved. So if you're building a new home and you want one of these systems, we do recommend that you come to us early to help with your planning. So they're generally placed in the laundry. So this is the actual heat recovery unit. And I'll explain how it works shortly, but it needs to be somewhere where you do have a condensation drain as well. And it has the heat recovery unit inside it. And then it has the ducts running off it to outside, and then those ducts run through the house as well. So even if you want to go, can you go back, Daniel, to the previous slide? So you'll see here, you can see some ducts running off into some distribution boxes, And then these boxes, one is for extraction and one is for supply, and they take all the ducts into the different rooms. So yeah, there's a bit there, but once it's installed and it's on 24/7, you don't hear it. It doesn't make any noise. It's very quiet. It's not like an air conditioner that's sort of blowing air in your face. It's just a very sort of soft trickle of air, either extracting or supplying and running through your home.
So I was a couple of times at the house, and you can barely even recognize that the system is actually going. It is so unnoticeable as well. And the indoor air is really nice. I mean, I'm not suffering of any asthma attacks or something. But I've been seeing Simona sometimes coming with me inside, from an outside event, and that's exactly where she might had just the beginning of a flare up, but it really calms down as soon as she is inside. So
If
it's a
I
really
know
good
Simone
situation.
said to me once that the machine got accidentally turned off
Oh,
and it was off for about a day, and she said it just felt so horrible in the house. It was stuffy. It was just it just felt really stale, and there was no air movement. So generally that's when you feel it, is when it's not on.
absolutely.
When it's on and you're feeling good and there's air movement, then that's how it should be. And you don't have those issues of feeling
Yes.
claustrophobic as well.
Absolutely, and in particular, I think in consideration of very airtight builds and designs like a passive house, I think it's a really important part to consider, because otherwise you don't have the air exchange. You're actually running literally out of oxygen to some degree, and
Mm.
it's really important to understand that. Also for future, how do you consider, like, even when you're selling, just be aware, even when you are interested in a passive house, it should be a consideration to understand good and well how the ventilation works.
It is a necessary part of a passive house. So if you're going
Yeah.
for passive house certification, then a ventilation system like this is pretty much necessary or compulsory to get that passive house certification.
Yeah, so we will now jump a little bit into the details of mechanical ventilation, in particular heat recovery ventilation. And but let's start really on the side of the changes, the latest changes to the regulatory, and what that means. So give us maybe a run
Yeah,
through.
so just in terms of the regulations, and by no means am I an expert, but the changes to go from 6 star to 7 star, which is happening this year, and I think it's around May or June, where most of those changes will take place. Someone might be able to correct me on that. But what this means is that we're having to seal our buildings better with the 7 star. So improved glazing, improved insulation, building wraps, and so forth. And what that means is that yes, you'll have a well sealed, airtight home with excellent thermal performance, better than you've probably ever lived in. But what happens is that that air, there isn't a lot of ventilation running through those homes. So to overcome that, mechanical ventilation is one of the ways to overcome that, whilst keeping your home energy efficient by not having to open windows and so forth. You're keeping the heat in your home or the cool in your home, and significantly reducing your energy bills as well. So just to give you an idea of how you measure the airflow in your home. Now, I believe Solar Victoria are offering or they were offering blower door tests there was a grant for blower door tests. And this will actually measure what your airflow is in your home once you've done all the work. So we know from a blower door test where it's all sealed up and then the machines that go around, they measure the airflow. Once that happens, if you've got less than 5 air changes an hour, you've done a pretty good job at sealing up your home, but moisture will become an issue. And I think, at around the 7-star NCC 7-star build, a lot of homes will be sitting between that 5 and 6 air changes an hour. Some, it might not necessarily be passive house standard, but you're at 7 or 8 stars, you're going to see 3 air changes an hour. That's when you're really going to really have to consider mechanical ventilation, because you're going to get a lot of condensation build up in your home. So from this chart here, like most homes now that are built, sort of in the 70s and 80s, that were built with trickle vents, we all had ventilation in just about every room. They sit at over 10 air changes an hour. So a heat recovery system for the whole house is not really required. It wouldn't work that well. You might have 1 or 2 rooms that do get moisture buildup, like a bedroom or so forth. You could put decentralized units in to solve that issue. But really, you should be looking at ventilation if you're under 5 air changes an hour. 0.6 air changes an hour is the passive house standard. So that's what you need to achieve to get a passive house standard. And that's when mechanical ventilation is absolutely a requirement of passive house standard. So we know, that open windows and cross ventilation is cheap and simple and it works everywhere, but there's no heat recovery with that. You've gone and built a home that's got great insulation and great windows and it's airtight. So you don't really want to have to open the windows to ventilate your home because you've got the heater on. You want to capture that heat or the cool in your home. So there's no heat recovery. You let the dust in, noise, drafts, etc. And it doesn't address rooms without windows as well. So quite often bathrooms and en-suites are built without windows.
Exactly. That's a really good point. I was thinking when I put the slides together, in particular in the southern part where we do have cold days, and so coming from Germany, of course, there was always the rule, open up the windows. Often enough, we would be living in apartments. Like that's a pretty normal standard, not in a single dwelling, a typical Australian home. And apartments are far more tricky actually to ventilate. While we did all of this, moisture built up, mold it was always, in particular in bathrooms, a little bit of an issue, unless it had really good ventilation systems. So on that note, it's probably also something to consider. For example, if you're retrofitting, it's an area we will touch as well onto it. What makes sense, where are basically boundaries, but it is and definitely something to consider.
So at Stiebel Eltron, we have a couple of solutions. So I don't think I've really explained how the heat recovery system works, and I'd like to do that just briefly. So you can see on this diagram that there's a unit sitting on the wall, and there's 4 ducts coming off that unit. There are 2 ducts going outside. One is supply air and one is extraction air. So we put the extraction points in kitchens, bathrooms, and laundries. That's where we're making the most moisture in the house. What happens is that air is extracted and it's sent through the heat recovery machine. Now, this machine is just It's basically a heat exchanger with just some polymer or metal fins and a few fans and filters. That's it. So that the power draw on them is very, very low. So the heat is captured from that extraction and then it's sent out of the building. Then we bring fresh supply air in and it goes back through the heat exchanger. It doesn't cross over with the dirty air. It's a counter cross current exchanger. So, and then it'll go through a filter and then it will deliver the fresh filtered air almost at the same temperature that it left. So it's got about a 90 to 94% heat recovery. And then it will deliver that fresh air back into bedrooms and living areas. So that's basically, that's how it works.
Angela, on that note, you have, like, just before we started the webinar, you have made a really interesting comparison in terms of efficiency. Maybe you can repeat that.
Yeah, sure. So, these machines they're designed to be on 24/7. You don't turn them off because it's just constantly working to deliver fresh air and extract that moisture. So you might think, oh gosh, like if you left an air conditioner on or a heater on 24/7, you'd have a pretty high bill. But these machines draw about the same as a light bulb would. So it's like a cup of coffee a week, pretty much.
Yeah, makes a big
So
difference.
yeah, so it's $250 to $350 a year to run this machine 24/7. And if you're not having to open your windows and you've built a really good thermal efficient home, then your heating bills aren't going to go to skyrocket either, because this is bringing the fresh air in at 94% heat recovery. So your dependency on your heating and cooling system also significantly drops.
Exactly. And you have also a decentralized ventilation
Yes.
system.
So this one is a little push and pull system. So every 40 seconds, it will change direction. So it will supply air, and then 40 seconds later, it will turn around and extract air. And it has the filtration system in it as well. So these can be good for renovation or just a small apartment, or a couple of rooms that might need some ventilating. I guess the big downfall with these, though, is that it does require a bit of planning. So you do have to have an external wall because it does need to extract out of that wall. So depending on what your walls are made of, that's probably where the expense comes in. But we've just recently installed, or a good installer has installed these into a school where one office building was just it just really had a mold issue, but they couldn't see the mold. And so this was a solution that we thought that will help. It won't get rid of the existing mold, but it will stop that mold forming even more and reduce the smells and so forth in that room. So hopefully all those the admin staff can move back into that room next week and not be feeling quite ill.
That it's a big problem in all kind of buildings, and it's a good alternative solution, even in the sense of retrofitting if possible. So can you maybe just quickly what are the key differences? So we have the centralized system and the decentralized.
Yeah.
We have touched on this is in particular for smaller, like single rooms and so on.
Single rooms, small apartment blocks where you can have maybe say 4 of these machines, but you do need to have external walls. So you'll have some vents, on the outside as well. Or yeah, just a couple of single rooms. For a whole house solution, the centralized system is better because it's a balanced system. So our designers and planners, whatever is extracted from the house will be brought back in as fresh supply air. So it's completely balanced. So you won't get that sort of negative or positive pressure in a house that can occur if you're extracting too much or supplying too much air. So for a whole house solution, a centralized system is a better option if you've got the space for it. So there is some planning and design around that. There are a couple of ceiling heat exchangers as well that can be fitted with just some standard ducting as a solution as well. But for a full passive house, then you do need the full system.
Yeah.
And we are specifying these for homes as well that are new builds. So there is some planning involved. You have to have room for the ducts. You have to have the whole system sitting within the thermal envelope. You don't want ducts running above the insulation because that affects the heat recovery and so forth. But Stiebel Eltron are there to assist you in the planning phase with this.
So the centralized system is basically better suited in particular for new builds because it makes it really difficult in the sense of retrofitting. Often enough, you're limited in space and
yeah, I mean, it can be done. It depends on your roof cavities, what
yes,
your insulation looks like, whether you're prepared to, re-insulate over the top of the duct and so forth. So,
yeah,
yeah, it can be done. There are different solutions. Just on this is sort of just some planning that can occur. So if you're putting in the decentralized system, you'd have 2 units extracting and 2 supplying and changing direction every 40 seconds. It's just small apartments. But with a centralized system, you have dedicated supply and dedicated extraction points. So the extraction's always extracting from the bathroom and the supply's always going in to the living areas and bedrooms. And it's a perfectly balanced system as well. So you have exactly the right amount of air going in and out of the house.
awesome. So, and this is an overview of all the system solutions
Yeah.
that may run
Yeah,
off.
so I'll just touch on them briefly. So we've mainly talked about the first 2 units here, which are the first one is Passive House certified, and it's a centralized system that will service up to 4 bedrooms, slightly bigger units. The VCR 180, which is the unit in the middle, is a ceiling system that's also for smaller houses or apartments. That particular unit is going into some of the Nightingale projects at the moment. So that is one development that is using heat recovery ventilation because they are a build in Brunswick that is over 7 stars. So they really liked the fact that heat recovery ventilation will keep the occupants healthy as well. And then there's the centralized one, and then the 2 on the end there are for more commercial applications or classrooms. So, having a system in a classroom with 25, 30 kids in there, in a stuffy classroom, it'll extract the CO2, it will extract dust and other particles, organic compounds, even down to sort of viruses and so forth. So
Can you give us a little bit of an idea actually in terms of schools and the adaptation to better ventilation system, in particular in the aftermath of COVID? Are schools now more considering these solutions?
yes, they are. I mean, like everything, they've got limited budgets, especially, government schools and so forth. But it is becoming more of a consideration, especially for the architects and designers as well, the planning, the build of new schools, because they are also looking at, more energy efficient rooms, better insulation, keeping the windows closed. So it's a consideration, just like it is for a homeowner, and keeping your children pretty healthy as well. So yeah, there's a couple of schools who are looking at putting these systems into their renovations.
Mm. So in general, maybe as a rule of thumb, if you're building new, it's really the centralized solution. And you, like anyone can basically reach out to Stable to also get advice and design support. Is that correct?
That's correct. So if you're considering heat recovery ventilation, then we can go through a process with you where we talk about what system might be good for you and the costs involved. And then we can assist you with the planning. And we present a document that shows you all the airflows for each room, the equipment that you need, a document for an installer so he knows where to put all the points and so forth. So it is a very handy document, and it's great for your tendering process as well, so that that an installer can quote on it for you too.
Yeah. So that brings us also to the topic of filtration. And filtration is a really core component of it because it is
For sure.
allowed, to maybe you can take us through all the details.
Yeah, so not only is the heat recovery side of the unit, beneficial, but the filtration is what it's primarily a ventilation system and it filters the air. So there are different levels of filters available, but I pretty much recommend that you just upgrade the filters to an F7 filter, and that's it. They need changing about. It depends where you live, but every 6 months to check the filters and see that they're still okay. If they're dirty, then it's time for a change. And they will filter out down to particular matter of 1 to 2.5, which is combustion particles and that sort of thing, and then particular matter of 10 is mold, dust, and pollen. So we don't use HEPA filters in these systems. HEPA filters you'll find, in a lot of air purifiers and so forth, but they're generally for, my understanding is that HEPA filters are for filters that circulate indoor air, where we're bringing in air from the outside. So they're just too fine to work in a HRV system. The cost of those it's about $100 for a pair a year. So there's another cost in, but it's I don't think it's exorbitant. This is what
Yeah.
a filter can look like after 3,000 hours, which I think is 3 months. That's pretty black. That's the stuff that you're extracting dirty air, but you're also stopping all that gunk coming into your house as well.
And I think for anyone who is very sensitive and really tries to work, a better indoor air quality, so that they don't suffer actually from either flare-ups or even allergies. And I think the investment is decent because you get so much on life quality back through a system solution like this. Yeah. So the design process, how would that work, and what is really a consideration?
Yeah, so what happens is that we receive some floor plans, and we have a look at the design of the home and how many people are living in the home, because that is calculated as well. That 30 cubic meters per hour per person is what's required, and then also the layout of the home and how big it is. So that will determine the size of the machine and the airflow into each room. So So that's the calculations that our team does, and then they plan. So they generally plan, it's usually the cascaded ventilation on the right where we supply the air into, sorry, this is all in German. So Sonia, you might be able to tell me what Zimmer is, maybe bedroom or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's basically just room, but it can
Room,
be
okay.
bedroom or any other room. But usually Wohnzimmer, that's the larger area, is the living space.
Yeah,
Küche, kitchen,
yeah.
bath
So
is the
yeah, so
bathroom.
the yellow is extraction points, and then the red is the supply points, and then this area they haven't put supply points in because the airflow will just move around and it will all balance out. So there are different ways of doing that, and that's a bit more for the engineers to look at. But yeah, so it's quite a there's calculations done in the process of designing the ventilation system. So it's not just put one in and blow some air in some rooms and extract in other rooms. It's quite a delicately balanced system. So on the right, you can see this is quite a big house. Down in Cape Shank, they've put two ventilation systems in, one on the left, one on the right, and then you'll see some of the distribution boxes. Underneath is a hydronic system here, and then this is all the ducts running. So this looks like a quite a neat install. It's sitting under the insulation, so it's all within the thermal envelope, and those ducts are around 75 mil, those ducts there. Yeah, we've sort of come to the end of my presentation here. So just to give you some reassurance that Stiebel Eltron have been in business for 100 years. I think they've been making ventilation systems for around 25 to 30 years. 50 years of heat pump experience, and we have been in Australia for over 25 years as well.
Yeah, so not a new market
Not a
entry,
new company.
very
Yeah, that's
experienced
right.
also
Yes.
with Australia and the climate and the building conditions. I think that's really important to also mention. On that note, so why did we actually onboard Stable Eltron? So Evitat platform is really a supportive platform to make better conscious decisions. And Stable Eltron has a incredible good quality product solution to support actually the pathway to an all-electric home, saving on energy costs, but also the emissions. So all these factors play a role. Every single supplier is going through a vetting process, and that's the reason why we onboarded also Stable Eltron into the platform. So while we have this market opportunity to explore, for example, suppliers and in particular products, and we are also making it a little bit easier even for homeowner to understand actually the products and the breadth and the depth of these co-benefits. I've extracted here, for example, how we match these co-benefits with humanized things, really to explore in an easy way how it works. But we also run these webinars, of course, to dive a little bit deeper into the topics. And in particular, if someone is considering to build a passive house, the topic is quite right at the top in many considerations. So yes, this is a good place even to start to educate yourself and to take a little bit ownership and understanding, and then moving it over actually and collaborating with a good experienced professional from the passive house side, or even an architect, a builder who is experienced and has worked in that space. So on that note,
I might sorry, Sonia, I might jump in. There's a couple of good questions in the chat
yeah,
that might
awesome.
be good to touch on now, if that's cool. So the first one is from Greg, who asks, what's the main limitations and potentials for renovations? So maybe if Angela, maybe if you could maybe touch on how it can work in a retrofit renovation sense, these kind of systems. And then there's another question after that. Thank you.
Yeah. So with renovations, I mean, every situation is unique. So there are things to consider, like your roof cavities. Do you have room for the ducts? Also, you know, your wall construction, is it easy to, if you're going for a decentralized, do you have an external wall where you can put this system on as well? It's mainly around those sorts of issues, whether you have room for it and whether it is suitable for your situation. You know, I wouldn't go and put a HRV system in to a house that has, you know, lots of cracks in the you know, between the floor and the walls and so forth, because it's just a waste of money. But if you've got one or two rooms that have really bad mold issues, then that is, you know, something that you would look at. So it's really questions for the installer. We can recommend the solution, and then a good installer will come out and tell you whether it's a good system for you to install and whether you have the ideal situation for that.
Okay, great. And if someone, let's say, has ducted reverse cycle in their roof and obviously has another ducted system up there, does that kind of preclude them from having these systems as well, or can they work together?
They work in conjunction with each other.
Cool.
So they can't be integrated. There's one thing to remember, that this isn't a heating and cooling system. It doesn't replace that, but it helps when you've got a good building with lots of insulation. It will help reduce your dependency on your heating and cooling system. So they can all run up there. The ducts are a lot smaller than ducts that you would have for a ducted heating and cooling system. But they do need to be within the thermal envelope. They do need to sit under your insulation.
Okay, cool. So there's another question from Chris asking, would it be a bad idea to have a heat recovery ventilation running 24/7 if you get a lot of outdoor humidity? Is outdoor humidity an issue?
There are different systems for that. It's basically we changed the core over, so it's not HRV. It's an enthalpy core, which manages the humidity exchange between indoor and outdoor. So that's better for the northern states, sort of north of Brisbane. You would probably start to look more at the enthalpy core. So everything else is set up the same, but it's about managing the humidity exchange rather than the heat recovery being the primary focus. My northern counterparts are a bit more experienced with that. So if you'd like to talk to somebody from one of our interstate offices, then yeah, please do.
Okay, cool. Just two more quick ones. Thanks. Jen is asking about decentralized systems managing with kind of, if you're in an area where people have wood ovens and wood smoke everywhere from like a neighbor's fire, would that cause issues, or do you maybe need to clean the filters more? Do you kind of know anything about that?
Yeah, there are special it will help a little bit, the filtration, but there are special, you'd probably be better off with a centralized system, and then you have to install a special firebox that has a higher filtration system to get rid of that wood smell coming into your home. So there are solutions around it. A ventilation system decentralized will help a little bit, but it won't solve those issues.
Great. And then this last one is for me. I was just curious if these kind of systems are included in any energy efficiency rebate programs over the country, or if they're coming in soon anywhere. Is that something that any governments are looking at in Australia?
Not yet.
That's annoying.
I guess that one of the things is we hope that there will be, you know, different grants for these sort of things. We have people working on the ground with governments over looking at these different rebates and so forth. I think what will happen in the future is that these ventilation systems will be part of the NCC requirements as well, as we increase, energy efficiency on homes. I know that in Switzerland, now you have to reach a certain standard, 1.6 air changes an hour on your home to get your building certificate. That's pretty significant, and I think these changes are coming here probably 10, 15 years time. But yeah, I think we'll see that more, and hopefully there will be rebates on these sorts of things.
Wonderful.
In terms
Okay.
of rebates, maybe just to mention, Stiebel is also offering hot water heat pump systems. So that's definitely something to consider.
Yeah, that's a rebated item. The government are pushing, and it's an easy energy transition off fossil fuels is to replace your hot water system. That's one of the easiest things that you can do, particularly with standalone homes. It's a little bit more tricky in apartment situations, because you've got a body corporate and usually a centralized system. But with a standalone home, get rid of your gas hot water system and replace it with a heat pump. And there are lots of rebates around the country for those.
Absolutely. On the note, actually, in terms of, for example, the product quality, we know that the install is equally important as well. And you are offering actually a training program for trades. Is that correct?
Yeah, for installers. So generally, anyone that is a HVAC installer, so for your heating, ventilation, air conditioning, can come and do training with us to learn how to install these systems. They're not overly difficult systems to install. For a HVAC installer, they get it. So once they've had the training, they'll understand it. There have been people in the past that have attempted to do this themselves, and I wouldn't recommend that. You do need an electrician as well to wire this up. But yeah, we offer training. So if there's any air conditioning installers out there that are looking to learn more about heat recovery systems, and builders as well, then we have a showroom, dedicated showrooms in every state, and can offer training on these systems as well.
Yeah, excellent. So on the note, maybe to also let everyone know, as a homeowner, if you engage with Stiebel Eltron, every install, for example, which goes through the platform, will be added also into a logbook, into your personal logbook, which is basically around your property details. And I can show you quickly how that looks like. So I'm accessing here the example I have created for our rental property here, which is a single dwelling home in Melbourne. And for example, here under heating and cooling, when we scroll down, we do have the question, for example, do you have a heat recovery ventilation system in your home? So if I activate that and say, can you estimate how much of your home benefits from this feature? Say 100%. These specifics will be also validated if they come from Stiebel Eltron. And then you see here, it also adds attributes immediately actually to healthy home benefits and efficiency and other areas. It really creates a great repository. And think of the moments, for example, like we had quickly scratch in the beginning. Angela is in the process even to sell her home, and we have often these moments when we transfer properties. This is a great way actually to inform and even to highlight to an interested buyer what this home has in terms of not just energy efficiency, but also co-benefits, like, for example, health. Health is a really big driver and decision maker. So being able actually to demonstrate what system solutions you have with full warranties, disclosure, and so on is exactly what we are building here with the logbook. So we are pretty much at the end of the session. I think it was a packed session with a lot of really interesting and good information, so that everyone understands actually the benefits of having a ventilation system. Also, what are the details really around heat recovering ventilation systems? For me, I really wanted to understand also here the differences. So if there are any additional questions, please feel free to add that also under the event page. There are comment sections. You can add any comments. I'm pretty sure Angela is more than happy to answer them or direct them actually to the right people. And feel free to reach out to Angela either directly or through our platform. And other than that, Angela, I hope we will see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Other topics like hot water heat pumps, for example.
Sure.
I think there's still a lot to learn and explore. So yeah, I want to thank everyone who stayed with us tonight, and I wish everyone a great evening. And feel free to explore the logbook on your own or the platform in itself. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.